Mr. President, Ray McGovern is here to brief you.
All right, Ray, and look, today is not like other days. My advisors tell me the Russians are bluffing, but I'm old enough to know that no one's bluffing when they got 5,652 nukes sitting on their lap and they're worried about, and they say they're bluffing, but I know you have this idea we shouldn't be going for victory. Well, they know we're not going for victory. We're not going to take over the whole Russia. We just want to humble them. We want to put them in their place so they respect our rules-based order, and respect NATO, and know that they're a second or third-rate power now, and they can't be telling anybody what to do. We want Ukraine to be in NATO and free and part of the Western Alliance. That's the way it's going to be. So tell me, well, they're not going to blow up the world to prevent that, are they?
Well, Mr. President, I hope that your advisors have told you that no way is Ukraine going to be in NATO. It's not only the Russians. Many of the key NATO countries wouldn't want it, don't want it, and would impede it and prevent it. With respect to how seriously
Wait. Why is that? Why is that?
Well,
nobody ever told me that. They told me all the NATO, they all want Ukraine in there. Who doesn't want it?
Well, I'd say Hungary, I'd say Slovakia, I'd say Italy and France and Germany, and you name it, Mr. President. With Ukraine at war, even the Secretary General of the NATO has said, look, we can't even possibly entertain this notion until there's peace, until Ukraine is victorious. Now, these are the same people, your advisors, that told you last July, like 2023, that Putin had already lost in Ukraine. Actually, you mentioned that again at the UN. Now, rhetoric is one thing, Mr. President. I don't want to suggest that rhetoric is out of place at the UN, but I hope you don't believe that, because we don't think it's true. We think it's just a matter of what Russia chooses to do between now and the election, and between now and January 20, when you leave office.
Ray, look, let's get back to 3 o'clock in the morning when they wake me up, okay? I don't know why, but I've been around this long enough to know there's a moment of truth. Even if the Russians are bluffing, maybe we do something, they do something, and you got to decide. Now nobody's going to know my legacy is I blew up the whole world, because there won't be anybody but cockroach historians to figure that out. When they evolve over 100,000 years or so. I don't know. I'm losing sight of my science here, but we're talking about the biggie, right? At least that's what
we are.
Yeah. So what do I tell Blinken and these people? I mean, and I'm in a little dangerous territory here now, because if I get all these guys thinking I'm losing it or losing my nerve, well, then they're going to start challenging my mental acuity. Well, my mental acuity is pretty damn good, because I remember what acuity is, right? And you know that. You brief me every week here, or sometimes every day. So, but tell me, what do I tell them?
Well, Mr. President, the best thing you can do is to make sure that there are contacts at a lower level than you with very senior people in Moscow. Luckily, we know that your Defense Secretary Austin is in touch with Belousov, the defense minister in Moscow. We have reports that they talked to each other before you made the fateful decision to deny the British permission to use Storm Shadow missiles with our technology in them to hit deeper into Russia. That was a inspired decision. Acuity, I would say, acuity reigned then, but partly because Austin had talked to Belousov, and Belousov no doubt had said, look, this is not bluffing this time. Don't call our bluff. One other thing, Mr. President, that is equally important that is never really raised up, and that is China. Now, uh, Putin made that very, very definitive threat about using nuclear weapons on the 12th of September. On the 11th, I have the paper here. On the 11th, the spokesperson for the foreign ministry said something very unusual. I dare say it was unprecedented. What she said was, look, our relationship with China is such that we will have a combined response to any balloon going, what you say, balloon going. We'll have a combined response to any threat from the United States. In other words, if you're trying double containment, you United States, well, we have double counteraction. Now, the reason I mention this, Mr. President, and the reason I know it's unprecedented is because I've been following Sino-Soviet and Sino-Russian relations for many decades, okay? This is unprecedented. And what it says is that they're not only joined at the hip, but they will be combined in their reaction. So in addition to what the threats are with respect to retaliation in and among U.S. allies, you have China signing up to this. And I am surprised at this because China has never let itself be associated with this tight defensive alliance with anyone, with Russia or anyone else. But the Chinese have not
Well,
demurred,
what
have
about
not said
what
anything.
about when they both were commies?
Well, when they were cooperating on the Korean War, for example, sure, they combined to support the North Koreans. But since then, and right after that, they were at loggerheads for 3 decades until they finally figured out it makes no sense to let the U.S. take advantage of our mutual antipathy. Let's get together. And right now, they are allies. They are virtual military allies. That's something that your crew didn't get 3 years ago when you met personally with Putin. You remember that you said that you told him you knew that China was squeezing Russia. Well, that was not right, unless you meant a kind of fraternal embrace. So, whether your advisors have learned this or not, I'm giving you what the foreign ministry spokeswoman says. They're going to combine their reaction to any threat from the United States. That could not be bigger. That's a tectonic shift in the international equilibrium.
Yeah, but how does this play out at 3 in the morning? Now, come on, Russia's a loser. They can't make anything except weapons, evidently. China, they're the second biggest economy in the world. Who would ever thought that would happen? And they could become the number one. Everybody wants to buy their stuff. I can't stop people from doing business with them. All of our companies here chomping at the bit to do business with China. Even what the hell, Tesla, Elon Musk. He's got a factory there in Shanghai. He sells his electric cars in Europe. So much for our trying to put some embargoes on everybody and do anything. So China, they don't want to blow up the world. They're enjoying their power like they never had before. First time
That's
since some emperor somewhere, right?
that's true, Mr. President, and I have to be real upfront with you. Your advisors are not going to tell you this, but the rise of China is inevitable. They are not only going to be the most important economic country in the world, but they have the ability to match us militarily, and with Russia as their virtual ally, they will exceed our military capability. So let me just say that back
Yeah,
in
but
March,
wait a minute. So they exceeded. So they want to blow up the world? I mean, this gets
they
back.
don't.
Look, Ray, you're
They
old.
don't.
You've been with what, the CIA for 27 years, right? You were there. You were there with them. Now you're sort of a ad hoc advisor to me
Right.
for what we're doing. All right, but the fact of the matter is, we only pretended to be the madmen. That was the theory. We weren't supposed to be madmen, right? When Nixon and everybody there, they pretended to be madmen so the Soviets would get unhinged. But the Chinese, they got too much to lose. They know nuclear war would end it for them. Anything about the greatness of China, be gone. Be gone
That's
for us
exactly
too,
right.
right? My
That
advisors don't seem to understand that. but there's no
Well, they
winners,
don't.
no winners. Right? Okay, I got that. And
Well, they told you, Mr. President.
Zelensky tells me they're bluffing. He gives a shit. He don't
Yeah.
care. He's just all he cares about is stopping them. I get it, but the point is, how could the Chinese just blindly follow the Russians? If they're desperate, the Chinese are going to be participating. I don't buy that, Ray.
That's
And you
simple.
know more
That's
about it than I do, maybe. But I've met with these people, and they like their economic success. They like trading. They like selling stuff. I mean, they could be American capitalists, for God's sake. They do
that's
it better than we do if they got rid of that commie stuff, right?
That's exactly right, Mr. President. And that's precisely why China doesn't want a nuclear conflict or any other conflict. You won't be told this by your advisors, but China just wants to be left the hell alone. Okay, it's
Yeah.
got a
So
long
why are they getting?
millennia.
Why did they get in bed with the Russians?
Well, because China has been told by your Pentagon that they are target number one after target number two, Russia, is taken care of in Ukraine and elsewhere. It's delusional, Mr. President. When you said 1 month into your presidency that China is seeking to be the dominant military and strategic power as well as economic power in the world, and that's not going to happen on my watch, my reaction was, well, why not? Why not? Why don't we just live and let live, as we used to say? Or why don't we sort of have a win-win? Now, the Chinese say, can't we have a win-win? I think we ought to take them up on that to see if they're serious. The alternative is very seriously dangerous.
Ray, I'm going to tell you something because I know you briefed these people like what Reagan when he was awake, and you didn't brief Nixon. You briefed Nixon.
Not personally, but I wrote the president's daily brief for him.
Oh, you did. So you know what happened with Nixon. He talked a good game of confronting the Soviets, and then when he wasn't president, he wrote all those books and everything, gave speeches about we need to be at peace. He even attacked Reagan for saber rattling. He attacked that first President Bush for winnable nuclear war, and when he was running that first time in 1980. So, if I'm out of office here, which I'm going to be, God, you could count the weeks now, and I'm not so unhappy to be going. I'll tell you that. I could write all the nice books about trying to have peace, but while I'm in office, and we haven't even talked about Netanyahu, that screwball. What he's doing there. Now he wants facts on the ground, right? He wants facts on the ground, meaning he wants to conquer. Well, maybe even Jordan. No, God knows what. Maybe humble Egypt. Maybe go all the way to sort of. We don't know what he wants to do, but he's going to present whoever, whether it's me or no, it won't be me. I forgot. I'm not running Harris. Yeah, and Kamala. And or Trump, although he's so big on Israel. But the fact is they want to. Netanyahu wants this sewed up deal of conquest, old fashioned conquest. And now that's okay as long as he's our surrogate and he's just humbling these people and keeping them in their place. But if he thinks he's the kingmaker and he's going to decide what the whole goddamn map of the Middle East looks like and all of its resources and everything, and it's going to be in Tel Aviv, not in Washington, calling the shots, or Jerusalem and not Washington. But I mean, I think he's has he gone off the rocker?
Mr. President, I dare say he may think that for the next 6 weeks. In other words, he's looking at the political situation in our country. He thinks you can be had. Okay, he thinks that he can go into Lebanon and get involved in a major war, and that you will have no option other than to come to his rescue, even if it means sending in the Marines from those amphibious ships you have in the Mediterranean. Let me go back just for a second. You mentioned Ronald Reagan. I briefed the president's daily brief every other day. We were a team during the first 4 years of Reagan's first term. Now, he was, as you know, a dead a real rabid anti-communist, but he listened, okay?
Yeah,
Long story
until he met
short,
one. He thought they were like the people in Hollywood in the Screen Actors Guild and with the blacklist. He thought they were these argumentative intellectuals. And then he meets Gorbachev, and what does he fall in love with him or something?
exactly. Well, it's not that he fell in love with him. He saw that Gorbachev was the real deal. And what happened? In 1987, Gorbachev said, hey, we have these missiles in Europe. They give us about 10 minutes lead time before we destroy the world. Let's destroy them all. And Reagan came to us and said, is he serious? We said, well, find out. Well, long story short, those intermediate nuclear forces missiles were all destroyed in place. The first time in history, the whole class of nuclear missiles were destroyed. That was 1987. What happened in 2019? Donald Trump acceded to pressure from his military, got out of that treaty. So what I'm saying here is that Reagan, rabid anti-communist that he was able to see that there's a
Wait,
mutual
hold
interest.
on a second. Hold on. So you're telling me even though that he's Putin's simp, he went against Putin?
Who, Reagan?
Yeah. No, not Reagan. Trump.
Oh,
You
Trump.
say
Yeah.
Trump
Well,
Trump wanted to put him back in. He's into nukes, and Putin doesn't want him. So how could he
yeah.
be Putin's simp? What is that?
Well, you pointed out a fallacy there, Mr. President. I hope that you're not taken by this notion that that Trump is in love with the Russians. That was all
What are you
constructed by
talking
Hillary.
about? That's Kamala's whole campaign. Well, no, I mean,
I know.
what are you talking about? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
we've promised to be there forever. I promise to be there forever as long as it takes, and we're going for victory over the
well,
Russians. So, what I'm asking about though is Trump, because if we're presenting him, as Putin's simp, not that the media follows any of this stuff in any logical way, but if that's the case, then the lights seem to have gone out here. You can see me all right? Yeah.
well,
But if
Mr.
that's the case, why the hell did Trump break up that thing that was benefiting Putin, and why would he withdraw the ban on the intermediate range missiles?
Mr. President,
You got a
it's
book I
worse.
can read on this? Somebody make sense of it? I don't get any briefings anymore that
Sure.
make sense.
Yeah, you can read a small book by Stephen Cohen called "War with Russia?" question mark. And that's what it comes down to. And you don't want that, I don't think. You've said many times you don't want World War III. The bit about the media is that the media has painted Putin and Trump, by implication, into a bête noire, okay, the devil or Hitler themselves. The danger in that is that most Americans believe that. And so, if you're faced with some sort of decision as to whether you respond to a perceived Russian aggression, you're going to have most of the Americans believing that, my God, these Russians are terrible. And so, what you need to do right now, in my view, is to tamp down that hatred and just say, look, Russians are saying they like to talk to us. Things are not going so well in Ukraine, in your own mind, not in your rhetoric. Let's see if we can prevent worse from happening. And Putin's threats, of course, need to be taken into account, plus Beijing's aligning itself with these threats and other things that show on the ground that far from
Hey,
Putin losing,
Ray,
he's winning.
Ray, let me interrupt you there. Okay.
Sure.
So let's say I stick my neck out here. And so, okay, but whatever we're going to settle with the Russians, we're going to have to call it victory, right? I mean, we don't lose. We don't lose. And not on my watch. So what they want those four promises? You can't give them that. They want NATO. They want to join. Russians don't want, and we can hold that off for a while, right? Come back, give Zelensky back his four provinces. Uh, all right, we'll hold off on NATO for a year or two, and then the hell with them, we'll just do it, right? Because they won't be able to do anything then, and uh, and we'll call it victory. But the Russians not going to go for that. They've already made those 4 Ukrainian provinces part of Russia now, right?
They have,
So
and the
are
notion
you
that
predicting that they would back down? And am I going to be able to do this in the next, 5 weeks or something, and then not be destroying Kamala because I keep telling you about my heritage, my reputation, my dynasty, whatever the hell you call it. Uh, if I cost her the election, and the only card she's got now is that Trump's an agent of Russia, right? I mean, that and the abortion issue. I don't know if that's enough, you know.
well, Mr. President,
Yeah.
I just suggest
What are
that
what are the
things.
Russians? What do the Russians do about abortion? Under Putin now, they go back to that church, their religion. Can we attack the Russians for being anti-choice? Is that true?
No, but we can attack them for being anti woke, if you will.
What is
The
that?
Russians
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the Russians have always had a kind of liberal interpretation of abortion. The Russian Orthodox Church goes back to Scripture and realizes that Jesus, for example, didn't say word one about abortion. Apparently, he didn't know about the Supreme Court and so forth. I'm sorry to be frivolous here.
Yeah, don't be
Um,
frivolous. We talk about the destruction. Don't make use cute points. I
I'm
indulge
just
you
saying.
as I put up with you as an old guy, but people going to listen to these tapes or watch them. We're going to be like two old coots here babbling at each other while the world burns. Is the world burning?
Well, that's the point, Mr. President. You have stepped back from the precipice. You have recognized these folks that have told you Putin is bluffing as people who are not serious people because they already told you that Putin was losing this time last year.
Yeah.
So you haven't fired them. They're still around. Don't listen to them anymore. What you need to do is appear to
Austin,
be more
I could listen
conciliatory.
to Austin.
What's that?
I could listen to Austin and Pentagon. They got it right.
Well, no. Well, you have to. In my view,
Are these
Austin
guys
has
all
the
neocons? How the hell did they all get in here? Are they all are they the old neocons switched over from
the
the Republican
neocons, Mr.
Party?
President. When George H.W. Bush and I were friends, and I used to brief him, he called them the crazies. Okay, it was worse than the crazies. I would call them the vampires because you can't stick a wooden stake into their hearts and keep it there before they arise again. They're infiltrated. Blinken is a paragon of a neocon. So luckily, you overruled Blinken and the Brits when you denied them permission to use U.S. technology with their Storm Shadow missile. That was a biggie, and that was a terrific move toward peace. What I'm saying now is that from the signs I see in my neighborhood, and this is anecdotal, okay? There's a lot of Trump supporters, and I asked them, I said, why are you going to vote for Trump? Because he's going to end the war in Ukraine. Whoa, 8 out of 10, Mr. President. What I'm suggesting to you is that if your administration adopted a slightly less aggressive
You
attitude
live
toward
in
Putin.
a CIA neighborhood, don't you? No.
No, I live now in a neighborhood in North Carolina, which
Oh,
is, as you know, a battleground state. So
oh.
this is anecdotal, but if you think about it, Trump
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
running on this,
Look,
and
we got to wrap this up. How long we been doing this now? A half hour or so. I mean, what? As you guys,
well, Mr.
yeah. But
Yeah,
let
Mr.
me get back to the fate of the world here. You remember that Jonathan Shell? He wrote a book about it.
Sure.
Everybody was scared about nuclear weapons. You know what, Ray? Just between us, nobody gives a damn about them. It's amazing. I don't hear anything, buddy. I care. I care because I've been there. I've been inside the government for so long, and it terrifies me. Let's just be straight. Call it. Tell that kid to turn off that tape recorder. Do we have the ability to turn off that tape recorder? I don't want anybody to hear this. Can you go black with it? You guys, you run that machine that records our conversation, Ray?
We don't. No, it's a
No.
White House switchboard.
Yeah, who the hell knows who they are? Probably working for
We asked
somebody.
Max. Max can do it.
Max, you around? Where the hell is that kid? It's probably.
Oh,
Yes.
see, coming up.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right, Max.
Yeah.
Can you turn off that tape recorder for a while? Because
Yeah. I'm turning it
I
off.
want to. Yeah, I believe you like I believe you. But anyway, let's assume he did. I want to be straight with you. I may be old, but I got when it's big, and you know that too, because you're no young kid. When it's big, like blowing up the world, it gets your attention. They say your impending death focuses your mind. It's an old statement. Thoughts of your, and I don't think anybody's ever sat in this seat. I didn't give a damn who they were. Even Reagan when he was kind of fading out, or Nixon when he was playing the big anti-communist guy who then collapses to Mao, or any of them. Macho war hero there, Kennedy. When he wasn't messing around with some mafia doll. None of them were unaware that they had life and death power over the world, over everybody, every human being. The media forgets it. Most senators, members of the House, they forget it. I don't think any president could ever forget it unless they got drunk or something, or somebody put them on some drug. But it's real. And frankly, for the first time in my life, I don't know what the hell is going on.
Mhm.
Because I hate these Ruskies. I think they're uppity. They were supposed to be defeated in the Cold War. We were supposed to proclaim victory. They're supposed to kiss our ass, and then we could give them a little minor Marshall Plan or Lend-Lease or some shit and bail them out. Meanwhile, make them a subsidiary of American companies, go in there. They all get so excited to have McDonald's nonstop 24/7. They'll give anything. And it didn't work out that way. And we picked this guy Putin because we thought Yeltsin was a drunk. Putin could come in there. Those guys in Petersburg, they told us he's one of them. Reformer, meaning get rid of the commies. He runs against the commies and he wins, what, twice, three times? And then he turns out to be worse than the commies. He won't follow our new world order. He won't. He won't follow it. Now,
In that sense,
yeah, go ahead, take it, Ray, because
no, I
you,
would just say,
you
in that
you know
sense,
this reality. Yeah,
well, Putin has pretty much reestablished Russia as a major power. His approval rating within the country is about 75 to 80%. That's because the Russians remember what happened after the Soviet Union fell apart. He's been fairly restrained in how he reacts to things, and I think, all things being said, that has been a blessing. With respect to Ukraine, which we need to kind of just keep in mind, when the rhetoric in the United States says that his advance into Ukraine was unprovoked, Mr. President, that's not true. We provoked it. When he says it was full scale, Mr. President, that was not true. He went in with about 90,000. He wanted to scare the hell out of the Ukrainians, and he did, and they came to terms, and it was all scuttled by Madame Nuland and Boris Johnson, and now Madame Nuland has admitted it. So relax, Mr. President. Putin doesn't want to take
where
over
where where,
Ukraine.
where
He
does she
does.
where does she admit that?
Say again?
Are you talking about Victoria Nuland?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Victoria
how the
Nuland in
hell
a recent.
how did she get into my administration? Wasn't she? She's married to the top neocon. Used to be with the Republicans, right?
She used to advise Dick Cheney on national security matters. So, yeah, like I say,
Who's that? Who's that
neocons.
guy? Who's that guy? Her
Dick
husband?
Cheney?
No,
Oh, yeah. Well, what's his name? Kagan. Kagan. Yeah.
Kagan. So he was
Yeah.
one of the big neocons, right? Right there with
Well, yeah. So,
advising Cheney. This
par
is now.
excellence. Yeah.
Now everybody's going to put me down if I say that his wife might be close to his thinking, but they were in the same crowd, right? She's a
Well,
neocon, right? So you're telling
she
me,
is.
how did she get into my administration, and why did she? Because looking back on it, I wish they'd taken that deal. I mean,
Well,
one of the things about my legacy is these hundreds of billions of dollars that I've given to Zelensky. Where the hell's that going to come back? You know,
you might just get something close to that deal, Mr. President. What the Russians are talking about is the Istanbul Charter or Istanbul Treaty Plus. So they've got those four provinces now. They're still willing to deal. They don't want to. They don't want to take over all of Ukraine. And the other thing, Mr. President, I want to make sure you know, they want to go into Poland. Have you been in Poland? I've been in Poland. Why would the Russians want to go to Poland or the Latvian, Estonian, or Lithuanian? So this is just for your information, not for your rhetoric. This is a canard. And I hope that Tim Walz realizes that if he's asked real questions about this, that he's going to have to really think fast on his feet to justify the notion that, as you have said rhetorically, Poland is next and then the Baltic countries. Relax, Mr. President. That's rhetoric. That may be Tony Blinken telling you stuff like that. That's like William Burns telling you that the Russians are defeated more than a year ago. It's people that you don't fire, and that Trump has been rough on you on that. He said you don't fire anybody. Well, I'm not asking you to fire. I'm just asking you to listen to reason
well,
here.
you're the main
These
guy
people.
everybody wants me to fire. Right?
That's a
I let you hang in here. So,
that's a
all
badge
right.
of honor, Mr. President. I'm telling you like it
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, let's cut to the chase here. We only got. I don't want to keep doing this.
Okay.
Every time
Well, let me
I
just.
think you're going to give me some good news, it gets worse. But I want to get back. I'm obsessed now with that 3 o'clock in the morning call. Do I push the button? No, it's not a button. It's code. I know the whole deal. But how the hell we know it's whether it's a false alarm? How do we put me there again, Ray? You've briefed everybody. How fast does this happen?
There are false alarms, Mr. President, and I know of two of them that came very, very close indeed. What seems to me the best defense against this is to have Secretary Austin and Belousov, his opposite number there in Moscow, plus the Joint Chiefs of Staff talking to the General Staff in Moscow, just so that there's the kind of arrangement that existed during the Cuban Missile Crisis where people can talk to each other and people can warn. People would say, oh, you shot something off there. What is it? And they can be reassured. Now, that's the scenario in Europe. I just like to make sure that we cover Israel. Israelis have nuclear weapons. Okay. The Israelis show no intent to stop in invading Lebanon. They are likely to send considerable ground troops in there. And guess what, Mr. President? Last time they did that, they got a bloody nose, and they get the same kind of bloody nose now, despite the recent victories over Hezbollah. Okay, what do I mean? They're going to get a bloody nose, and in the next 6 weeks, Netanyahu is convinced in his own mind that you will have no other option other than to jump in with the Marines offshore with everybody else and rescue him because the election is coming up. Now, what I'm saying is what General Brent Scowcroft, he used to brief Reagan and the first Bush. He was a pretty well-regarded guy. He was president of the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board when Iraq went down in 2002, 2003. You know what he said in 2004? He told the Financial Times, look, the problem is that Ariel Sharon, Israeli prime minister before Netanyahu, has younger Bush wrapped around his little finger. He's got him mesmerized. Scowcroft's words. That's what he said. That was to make sure that people knew that the reason for Iraq was largely because George W. Bush had been mesmerized and wrapped around Ariel Sharon's little finger. Netanyahu has said precisely the same thing privately when he didn't know he was being recorded in a video. Okay? So the problem is, next 6 weeks, you're going to have to decide whether that's true or whether you will tell Netanyahu ahead of this time, look, we don't want any of this. We don't want any asking for forgiveness after you do these things, like kill Nasrallah. We want to make sure that you don't think that we will come in with both feet militarily if you go deep into Lebanon, where you're going to get a bloody nose sure as hell. So all I'm saying, Mr. President, you have the power to prevent that. And my God, when you think of what the Israelis might do if they're in extremis, I just finish it up by reminding you that they do have nuclear weapons. Whether they'd use them or not, my God, I wouldn't want to take that chance.
Well, they can't use them without destroying their country.
Oh, they have little ones, you know.
Oh,
They come in all sizes
that's the
now.
whole deal. No, I mean that's the disturbing thing here now, because everybody's talking about the little ones. And
Yeah,
and
it's a fallacy.
how big is a little one?
Well, people
Compared to the 2000, how the hell did that happen? We said we weren't going to use those 2,000-pound bombs. Now, and then Kamala and I, we said that he deserves it, that Nasrallah guy, you know.
right.
But turns out he had some people even talk about him as moderate or something, and they say he had some popularity there in Lebanon, and you know, he wasn't one of the worst of them, and that you could do business with him. So now,
Nasrallah, yeah.
so why the hell do we throw those 2,000-pound bombs? They're ours, right?
Well,
Nobody else has them, right?
well, you very
Our
courageously,
contribution, yeah.
put a stop for a while to providing 2,000-pound bombs to Israel, but they have warehouses full of them, and those are the ones. If you haven't been shown the photos of what those bombs did to kill Nasrallah, please take a look at them. They are incredible photos, and they're real. The Israelis are the ones that released them. Okay, so what I'm saying here now is that God knows who's going to.
What do they show?
Oh, they show explosions as big or bigger than some of the nuclear explosions that used to take place out there in New Mexico. These are big bombs. They destroyed whole neighborhoods. That's why you, in your wisdom, denied the provision of these things for a period of time. I don't know if that's still the
But
case.
they weren't real neighborhoods, right? That's all where this Hezbollah, these terrorists, all were living, right? There's nobody
It was in
else.
southern Beirut, pretty much neighborhoods. It astounds me that their headquarters could have been known to have been in this neighborhood and so vulnerable. That's something that Hezbollah needs to get over. Their security is damn poor, and they'll be working on that, but they're not going to give up, Mr. President. And the thing is that if Netanyahu's not going to give up, the reason he's not going to give up is because, once again, he expects you to have no alternative other than to support him if he gets in real trouble. I expect that in the next 6 weeks, he'll do precisely that. And I just want to warn you that you'll be faced with a real painful decision right before the election as to whether you get involved militarily directly in this region of the Middle East, where no good has ever happened when the U.S. has become involved militarily.
Oh, you got anything more, or should we close this up?
Let me just check my notes here, Mr. President.
But you're saying with these little ones, we could cross the line. So, well, we can't. I mean, if they're supposed to be launched, remember, first launch, I don't have to tell you, then we're supposed to hit them with everything we got, right? First launch.
Yeah, the little ones, it's a misnomer. People say, well, these are only maybe half the size of what we did in Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Yeah, so they're not 50 kilotons. They're much smaller. So it will escalate inevitably after that. That's what we always held, and that's why you're so properly worried about this. The only other thing that I haven't covered is what you said at the UN about NATO never being so cohesive and so united. Mr. President, again, I know that's rhetoric, but I just want to make sure that you know that the opposite is the case. You have people in NATO, people who would have to vote for important things that are dead set against what Ukraine is doing now and will resist any effort you would make to restore Ukraine's capabilities. They don't want to spend any more money, send any more arms. They want the thing to end, and the people do too. So NATO is divided as never before. You could never, ever get a vote now on entry for Ukraine into NATO. It's, Blinken can say 1,000 times that now it's inevitable, and all your allies can sign on to, oh, it's inevitable. Inevitable doesn't mean anytime soon. Not in your lifetime, not in my lifetime.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
That's it. And I call you at 3 in the morning?
No, call Austin and see what he has to hear from Belarusov.
And what do we got? 12 minutes?
Well, it depends on what's going up. We have really good early warning devices. So in the past, this kind of communication has prevented the worst. Also, you might instruct your military people to be very circumspect. They don't want to identify a flock of geese over Norway as a Russian ICBM threat. That has happened in the past.
Well, that's comforting. So we probably have 20 minutes, right? Maybe. It's that old first strike thing. Yeah. But I'll ask you one last question.
Yeah.
Has Putin got all his marbles now?
Mr. President, there are very few things that I can give you a 100% sure answer to. The answer to that is yes.
And how could he be dicking around here with nuclear weapons? What the hell is going on? What's he talking? It's crazy. Crazy. I keep asking him. That question comes up because I remember some of these think tank situation things, game theory. You have to be nuts to be even threatening to use these things. And they always said no, as long as you know you're bluffing.
Well, that's what's different here. The Russians not only limit it to a nuclear attack against them or a threat to their sovereignty. What they're saying is that if you, a nuclear power, help a non-nuclear power like Ukraine strike deep into Russia, that the ball is up and they will decide whether to use nuclear weapons or not. Now, they're not saying it's automatic, Mr. President. They're saying that they've changed their nuclear doctrine to allow for this possibility. And for what it's worth, my friends and I don't think it would be worthwhile you're trying to call their bluff.
All right. So let me just this thing of delegating war, which we really been doing ever since Vietnam. We delegate in two ways. We think you don't need troops on the ground. You get the high tech bombing, strategic, shock and awe, and that's worked. And then you delegate to someone else like Israel or Ukraine to do the deed. Now, this morning when I woke up, the media, they're saying that works. They're saying that Hezbollah is finished. They're saying that the incursion into Russia has humbled Putin. So if I look to that, you could feel pretty good about this model we have of delegating. And, we don't have to go first. We have our allies like Israel or Ukraine. So, and then I talk to you and I get bummed out again.
Well, Mr. President,
I'm going to wrap this up. So take your best shot here because I have to act on some of this stuff. What's your answer on that one?
Mr. President, the mainstream media doesn't listen to people like me. We are excluded ipso facto from the mainstream media. The mainstream media listens to what they hear from Langley, what they hear from the Pentagon, and what they hear from your surrogates, most likely Blinken and Sullivan. And now those folks have proven their mettle, in our view, and that you should recognize what that mettle is and listen to sounder folks. One little example I'll leave you with. There's a fellow named John Mearsheimer. 10 years ago, he predicted that if the West tried to get Ukraine into NATO, this would be a disaster for Ukraine. Ukraine would be reduced to rubble. Now, I asked John Mearsheimer publicly, how many times has the administration, whatever administration in Washington, tried to get in touch with you and talk about all this? Because after all, you've been proven right. And he said, zero. Never once has a administration official asked to even talk to me, even though I'm widely regarded as the preeminent realistic school international relations professor. So there you go, Mr. President. Widen your circle of advisors beyond beyond Clinton, beyond Blinken and Sullivan. Talk to people who know something about Ukraine, know something about Russia and the previous Soviet Union and China, and broaden your horizons and tell or suggest to Vice President Harris that she do the same. Otherwise, there's nothing but grief and groping in the dark for solutions to problems that can be anticipated, as John Mearsheimer did 10 years ago in Foreign Affairs, the archetypical establishment journal. So that would be my suggestion. It's possible, even at this late date, to do that. And I dare say this more sensible approach might appeal to American voters as well as to the world.
Yeah, but she's going the other way now. Tough on the border. You know, she's the cop, the prosecutor. She was tougher on the. She's already saying she's tougher on the border and the immigrant issue than I am, and she's not gonna. No matter what I say, she's bringing it on. She says, "Bring it on with the Russians. They're bluffing," and she's got her own advisors now. She's gonna go her own way, and you know what? She'll end up being like what Margaret Thatcher, right? You can be a woman and be tough. Well, that's it. You know, Hillary Clinton,
Mr.
right?
President,
She liked Bill Clinton. They met at college there, and because he was against the war in Vietnam, and she ends up doing worse in Libya some ways, right? I mean, all right,
Mr. President.
enough.
Okay, last remark. You are president until January 20th next year. Doesn't matter what Kamala says. You're your own man. You can make it better for yourself, for your legacy, and I dare say for Kamala if you adopt more reasonable approaches and talk to more reasonable people besides me.
Yeah. Well, what do you think I talked to you? There ain't too many around. All right. Look, you're an old coot, but you're smart and you've been around. And I'm an old coot too, so maybe we got something here. Trust me, Ray. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting those alarms. If I'm going to throw some cold water in my face, and I'm going to be cautious. That's what I owe. That's what I owe history. But that doesn't mean you can go past 20 minutes, a half hour. Then they come in and say, use them or lose them. Remember that one? Use them or lose them. Our ICBMs are going to go. The subs are going to go. The airplanes are going to go. And what are you going to do? You know, you have to learn to speak Russian or some crap like that, or Chinese. All right. Yeah. All right. Take care, Ray. Enough. See ya. Yeah.
You're most welcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Where's that damn intern?